Oh, we started, of course, the academy November '74, graduated February 28, 1975. My first assignment breaking in was at SP Linfield. Then after break-in, due to budget restraints, we were sent to the airport for the summer of 1975. Then I went back to Linfield for a brief period and was transferred, I believe it was February '76, to Concord. June of '76, I was involved in a shooting with a group that had, it was alleged that they murdered a doctor, his wife, and son on New Year's Eve, '75 into '76. I was driving a car that was issued to another trooper who had information on this. As I was driving on Route 2, I went to stop the van, and they shot at me. And luckily, Dennis Bertulli was nearby. He assisted, and we arrested several people. As a result of that, I was offered a transfer to SP Framingham, which is what I wanted to go to. And I stayed there for, I think, 2 years. And then I was assigned to Foxborough and then eventually the 55 team. Stayed with the 55 team and also did court officer duties for them. And then the incident that we talked about with Paul Landry in 1982. And I transferred to the evening shift, stayed there until 1995 when I got promoted to sergeant. I then went to the narcotic inspection unit and stayed there until 2003. And then due to another incident, narcotic inspection, we were all transferred out, and I ended up going to traffic programs until June of 2008, when I was suddenly being transferred to a barracks in C Troop, 110 miles each way from my house, and consulting with my wife, and we said, that's it. A nice career, 34 years, but I'm not taking a ride to do midnights or evening shift, 110 miles each way. As a young kid at St. Agatha's Church in Milton, I remember 2 troopers in what was then the road uniform, which was the dress blouse, standing tall at the back of the church. They were probably doing their Sunday morning mass because they were good people. And I was, obviously, as a young kid, you were impressed by the uniform and the demeanor that they carried themselves off with. And then also, I probably remember the first time I ever drove into Logan Airport, seeing troopers doing the traffic control at the airport. Well, I wanted to go into law enforcement, and I took the exam for the local police, but wasn't that compelled to get on the local police as much as you want to be on the best, and that was obviously the Massachusetts State Police. So I went to North Quincy High School and 2 years of business school after that, and then did not get further education until got on the State Police and got my associates, and then went to Northeastern and got my bachelor's there, and then the master's from Westfield State. Obviously, the incident with Paul Landry and the shooting that I had in 1976 in Concord stand out, but I also had a lot of pleasurable incidents. For instance, there's a picture hopefully here at the museum where my state police classmate and high school classmate John Nee and I were privileged to live with then Governor Reagan for 3 days while he ran for president. And recently, only about 6 years ago, that I got the picture that was taken that day with us. And that was one of the, great highlight. I would have to say probably the day that I was sworn in as a trooper, and also the swearing in as a promoted to sergeant, where I was able to have my whole family, my wife, children, and in-laws, my mother and father-in-law. I think being in law enforcement back then, again, I've been retired almost 17 years, but again, things were a lot perhaps easier before we had all the communication devices, before we had people taking, you stop a car now and they want to challenge you. Everyone wants to confront you or perhaps kill you. And one of the greatest challenges I probably had was perhaps communicating with the higher-ups. I had some great bosses in my career, and I had some not-so-great bosses. And now, again, I don't know how to answer that It's a challenging job now, and it was challenging then, but I think it's more challenging now. I can proudly say, and I've advised troopers that are new to the job, put your family first. I'd like to think that I always put my family before. I didn't, yes, I did plenty of details. I remember one time I worked the air show at Hanscom for the weekend, and I felt so bad about it. I went out and bought a $1,000 swing set for the girls and things like that. But again, I always say to everyone, put the family first. Recently, the last couple of years, our daughter and son-in-law have made friends with a fairly new trooper, under 10 years, and I've told him, you put the family first, and because someday you're going to be off the job, but your family's still going to be there. And I never would want my girls to say, you weren't here for this, you weren't here for that, you were out doing a detail or overtime shift. No, family first. Worst day, I had several of them. Probably when my classmate, Donnie Shea, was killed very early in our careers in a motor vehicle crash. And when, obviously, we lost the 4 people in the helicopter crash. I had just been promoted to sergeant, and the lieutenant came in. He said, we've had a helicopter crash, start making phone calls. And I had to find out, because there was all sorts of rumors, stories, that it was ours. And then when my classmate, John Nee, who I was with on the Reagan detail, he and his wife and mother-in-law died in a fire on Thanksgiving night in, I believe it was 2000. So those were the tough ones, anytime you lost them. My wife and I talk about, I was on a sector patrol. That was an afternoon patrol, 3.5 hours of overtime for the rush hour. I was on 128. It was a spring day, and it was pouring tremendously, just buckets. And traveling in the breakdown lane was prohibited in the area of University Ave, Route 95, and 138 in Canton. Traffic is at a standstill going southbound, and a black Buick goes by me, not at a very high rate, but as nice as could be down the breakdown lane. Well, I'm going to stop this person and give them a ticket. I get out of the car. I've got my hat on, the campaign cover. The rain is pouring off the sides of it. Go up to the car, roll down the window, and first thing I see is an older gentleman with his Roman collar on. Hi, sir. I see your license registration. Gentleman turns. He said, I'm Father so-and-so from the parish. He said, do you like this car? The parish just gave it to me for my 50th anniversary as a priest. I said, yes, sir. It's lovely. I said, could I see your license registration? He said, where are you from? Crosby. Where are you? I said, well, sir, I grew up in Milton, St. Agatha's Parish. Oh, Monsignor, a good friend of mine. So he carries this conversation on probably 3 or 4 minutes. He then turns, I've never got his license or registration. He turns to me and says, you know, son, you're getting awful wet. You should get back in your car. I walked back to the cruiser. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He got me. And my late father-in-law enjoyed that story so much that, that he kind of BS'd his way out of that one. Well, probably when we came out with newer radar systems on the 55 team, which you could, we'll say, enforce the speed limit to the max, because you had the equipment. We even had a van that we could go in and write the violations in and so forth. And as Paul mentioned about 1982 having the old radio system and the new radio system. So probably the communications that came out were the best. Perhaps shoot at the bad guys in The Night with Paul Landry. Again, it was, I had to write a letter, damage to my cruiser, because there were bullet holes in it. And I said to the captain, the obvious answer is the bullet holes, I don't care, you still have to write a letter. And when I tell people that story, that I had to stay and type a letter, and young kids will go, what, you had to do what? What's a typewriter? They don't know. That's probably the only thing I wish I had done perhaps differently, and also done better on some of the promotional exams. The computers were just coming in around when I got promoted in 95. I hated having the desk because I didn't as someone calls it, the Bill Gates magic box. I didn't get along with it. So, but again, now with all the innovations that are in the car, I'm sure it makes it easier to do your job. Probably one of the proudest moments also receiving the Medal of Merit for that shooting. And perhaps one funny story at the academy. The first day at the academy, one of the drill instructors, Trooper Dan Donovan, a great guy, I smirked at something, and he said that he was going to lock me in a closet and electrocute me. So he opened the storage closet, shut the door, and I had to stifle my laugh because I just thought it was the funniest thing ever. The other thing was when a classmate who had told everyone he could not swim. They hooked a weight on him and made him go to the deep end of the pool and count cadence. And then they looked at me and said, "Go in and get him." And again, the academy we know was a lot different then, but it was still a great adventure. Great adventure. Oh boy, there was many of them. I'd have to say that one of the greatest bosses I ever had was Staff Sergeant Tim O'Leary, and I'd also give a shout out to Lieutenant Marty Fay. They were very kind and understanding, especially Marty Fay when my mother was in hospice and not doing well, and he made sure that I had plenty of time to take care of matters and so forth. But I can't really... probably one of the best bosses I had, yes, was in traffic programs. Retired Major Steve McCarthy just ran a great organization, a great group of us, and we accomplished a lot. But I have to say those three guys probably were a big influence on me. Well, sadly, the public has changed. The respect for any kind of authority is lacking everywhere, whether it be a school teacher, a member of the clergy, or the police. Everyone wants to confront you. And many times, for instance, like the story with the priest, nowadays perhaps someone would say, "I'm not taking that. I don't care who." Again, you help people. That was your job, to help and understand. And if whatever it had to be to help someone. Now, everyone wants to confront you again. And the image, sadly, we've had some bad press, but we've somewhat brought it on our own sometimes, too. We've had bad troopers, yes, that have made mistakes, that have caused this unrest, shall we say. But all in all, I'd still recommend it to a young man or woman that wanted a job in law enforcement. Go for the best. We've got, great people from the new colonel down to the most junior trooper. There was an incident I see the other night where a trooper and his coach were attacked with a hatchet. So again, training is paid off. And it's not an easy job. You're going to be gone at the academy, or what now? It's almost 6 months. The rewards will be great. And the other thing, put the family first. Don't ever forget that comes first. The job is a great job. But again, I say put the family first. And I'm proud to say that. I asked my daughters one time, did I miss anything? Dad, you were there for everything. So, and for instance, whether it was the Christmas party at the barracks, or asking your coworker to, could you swing home for a quick dinner or something, and you would help them, they would help you. I was on Route 9 in Brookline, or Newton, and again, not the best of days. It was kind of inclement. And a gentleman came up, and I was in what there was of a breakdown lane on Route 9 eastbound. And he got out of his car and walked to my driver's side. Now, Route 9 there is a divided highway with a Jersey barrier and a chain link fence. And I said to him, "Go to the other side." He then crossed Route 9 eastbound and stood at the Jersey barrier and said, "Can you help?" So that's one of my wife's favorite stories, that, again, that one in the priest. But I'd like to tell one other story that it was interesting. Running radar one afternoon on a Saturday on Route 95 in Sharon. A gentleman pulled up, and he said, "Trooper, I think I have a runaway in my car." I said, "Okay," and it was a truck. As I approached the vehicle, this young girl, about 14 or 15, bolted out of the truck and starts running southbound in the northbound breakdown lane. Being a lot younger and so forth, and had the Mighty Mac and the breeches and boots, I ended up catching her and tackling her. Now again, this is 1978. We had just got married, and I basically placed her in protective custody, shall we say, brought her back to the barracks, and ended up she was a runaway. She left. Her mother was a drug-addicted person, and she was just trying to go anywhere and so forth. And I remember calling my wife, and I said I was going to be late getting home, and I said, I have this young lady. Do you think it'd be all right if I brought her home? And my wife said, this is not like a stray dog. I mean, this obviously had to go through channels. And I've often wondered what, here it is, 46 years later, how that now lady is probably a grandmother herself or something. I often wish I could have followed up on that and wondered how, and hopefully someday maybe she's thinking, hey, this young trooper tackled me and helped me out, because, you had the division of whatever it was then, child services or something. But yeah, I think probably following up on some of the cases would have been nice to see. Just again, that it was a great career, 34 years. I wish I had perhaps retired at a higher rank than sergeant, but again, it was the way it turned out. I will tell one funny story. I had missed the lieutenant's test by 1 point, 1 question. And as a result of my shooting in 1982 with Paul, I collect license plates because the bullet's in the license plate. And so I'm up on play. I collect that at State Police Highway Patrol and presidential inaugural license plates. And I was bummed out, disappointed that I had missed the lieutenant's test. We're driving along, the family, my 2 daughters, my wife and I, and in front of me is a 1949 Lincoln with the license plate USSS-1, United States Secret Service 1, which was a replica of Harry Truman's inaugural car that he used in the inaugural parade. Look, kids, I said, look, that's a replica of Harry Truman's car. Look at the license plate and everything. Little voice in the back says, too bad that wasn't a question on the lieutenant's test. You would have passed. I didn't know whether to cry. But again,